Thank you all so much for joining. Thank you so much, Sukha Sagari Mataji, for your valuable association. So today's class is by Her Grace Sukha Sagari Mataji, and we'll be continuing from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila, chapter 22, verse 62 onwards. Very beautiful verses. Thank you so much, Mataji, for your very valuable association. You can now take over. Hare Krishna.
Now, thank you. I'll start off with the invocation prayers. Om Ajnanatimiraandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute. Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Haripriye. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Giriraj Swaminiti Namine. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Thank you very much, all the organizers and devotees, for giving me an opportunity to say something on this esoteric subject matter and purify myself in the process. We are going to be discussing most probably two verses today. This will be 2262 and 2263, Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila, 22, 62 and 63. The verse goes like this. Shraddha Shabde Vishwasa Kahe Shrudruda Nishchaya Krishna Bhakti Kaila Sarva Kama Kritahaya. Translation: Shraddha is confident, firm faith that by rendering transcendental loving service to Krishna, one automatically performs all subsidiary activities. Such faith is favorable to the discharge of devotional service. We'll read the purport later on. I'm skipping the purport for now. The next verse, 63, is from Srimad Bhagavatam. Yatha toror mula nishechanena tripyanti tat skandabhujopa shakhaha pranopahara chayati indriyanam tathaiva sarvahanam achyutejya. By pouring water on the root of a tree, one automatically satisfies the trunk, branches and twigs. Similarly, by supplying food to the stomach, where it nourishes the life air, one satisfies all the senses. In the same way, by worshipping Krishna and rendering him service, one automatically satisfies all the demigods. So this is from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, chapter 31, verse 14. Again, I'm not going to read the purport right away because let's try and set a scene as to how we have reached this far. So now we are seeing that we have kind of segued towards a fixed faith or shraddha. here as it is said, or in some terminologies we can also say it is nishtha in one sense, like where the faith is kind of firm and we are firmly fixed in our faith in Krishna consciousness. So how did this process come through? As we see, in the earlier verses, if we see, it has been discussed how a living entity, he is hankering after material desires, and he goes through a lot of the cycle of birth and death, and he goes through samsara over and over again. And at some point, by chance, it's mentioned in the previous verses, starting from verse 45, that by chance he gets devotee association and he awakens his dormant faith. So what happens is, the example of or the analogy of a log floating down a river is given to explain this effect. It is said that, however, some are fortunate to contact devotees, and by this contact they are delivered from the ocean of nations, just as the log floating down a river accidentally washes up on the bank. So we have to observe this word. Like even I think I had the opportunity to give a class about 2 weeks back, and this word accidentally actually comes up in a big way in this few sequence of verses. So we see that just as a log floating down a river accidentally washes up upon the bank. So there is some element of chance here by which a person actually awakens his faith. So then by good fortune one becomes eligible to cross the ocean of nations, and one's term of material existence decreases, one may get an opportunity to associate with pure devotees. By such association, one's attraction to Krishna is awakened. This verse is actually the 45th verse from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and we see here that it says that by good fortune, yedrichaya, by some good fortune, by chance, the dormant love for Krishna is awakened in the association of devotees. So in this purport, Srila Bhakti Vinoda Thakur, he also explains like the three kinds of sukritis, like what are the three kinds of good fortune. I'm sure we have all, I'm just doing a recap basically. So the three kinds of sukriti which is discussed here is bhakti unmukhi, bhogonmukhi, and mokshonmukhi sukriti. As the names suggest, bhakti unmukhi is pious activities that awaken one's dormant love for Krishna. Bhogonmukhi is activities that bestow material opulence, so that is bhoga, and pious activities that enable the living entity to merge into the existence of the Supreme are called mokshonmukhi sukriti, that is liberation as they see it. So these are the three kinds of sukriti which Bhakti Vinoda Thakur explains in that purport to the verse 45. So we see that, so in this context, the initial faith is being discussed, but in the context of today's verse, the verse 62, we are seeing that fixed faith or firm faith is being discussed. So basically we see there are two types of faith, and how do we differentiate between these two types of faith? So according to Prabhupada, he gives the analogy here. He says that the initial faith or the shraddha is shown by a person who is willing to wander into the temple and who is able to feel good about what is going on there. Like, somebody just goes into it, walks into a temple, and he likes the architecture of the temple, or the beautiful dressing of the deities, or the kirtan playing in the temple, or even he comes across a devotee who actually talks sweetly, or he takes some prasadam. So there could be many ways, how a person gets attracted to the temple or to Krishna in a direct or indirect sense. So this is what is the initial faith. It sounds almost like a kind of favorable curiosity. So it's almost like a curiosity, and Prabhupada says that this initial faith is enough to bring us into the association of devotees. And then, so now when we are talking about this initial faith, so did this person who walked into the temple by chance, because the word chance is being used so much, so did he have some knowledge before he entered the temple, or what made him walk into the temple? So in many occasions, a person may not even know, when he's entering into the temple, that he may get that chance encounter with a devotee, which may be a life-changing moment for him. So it is not like a person walks into the temple it's not necessary that a person walks into the temple in full knowledge. And pretty much speaking, for all of us, when we came into Krishna consciousness, we were not in so much knowledge, and we only gathered our knowledge, or we learned something only in the association of devotees and by executing devotional service, that we actually, like they say, bhakti is, the byproducts of bhakti are jnana and vairagya. So by following the process of bhakti, that's when we have gotten some knowledge of what this is all about, what are we doing with our lives, and things like that. So, but before that, it's, in most cases, we don't have the required knowledge. So initially, when there is some faith, okay, let's just go to the temple, because in India there is this thing, okay, my mom told me I have to go to the temple on my birthday, so I need to go to the temple. So somewhere somebody, the mother may be a devotee, and she gave the impetus to the child to go to the temple. So in one sense, somewhere or other, you might have gotten the inspiration. So that tracing the root of where you might have gotten the inspiration is not the point, but eventually you do come and awaken your bhakti by some inspiration. So this initial faith, just because, like I said, the example, you just want to please your mother and went to the temple on your birthday. So in one sense, it's a blind faith. It's not it's not something you're doing in great knowledge and saying, wow, I'm going to the temple because the scripture says this, that this is my duty, that I need to offer my life to Krishna, and this is what is my occupational position. And you don't know all these things as yet. So you just take, in some sense, you have your faith on your mother or father, whoever has given you this instruction. And in one sense, this initial faith, the Adav Shraddha, is you may not say that it is very intelligent. It is, in one sense, it is blind. But then the fixed faith, which we are talking about in verse 62, is actually intelligent. Why it is intelligent, we'll see further as to why it is intelligent. So in this context, Prabhupada, he gives this two examples. He says, just like when you go to a barber shop and you put your neck like this and he is with a razor, so unless you have faith that he's a good man, he will not cut my throat. So how will you even show your neck, to the barber? For all you know, he may just pull his knife across your neck. So this is just some kind of a faith you have. You may not know the barber personally, or it's just some faith in the system, some review you learnt about the barber shop or whatever. So that is the faith in the beginning. You cannot say that I don't have faith at all in this. So then you will never get your hair cut. That's what Srila Prabhupada is trying to say. Sometimes a barber looks like he can cut your throat. So in that case, you don't want to go to such a barber. So it is some kind of faith you need to have initially. Srila Prabhupada continues, sometimes a barber looks like he could cut your throat. He could do that, but you must have faith. Otherwise, no shaving. Suppose you're going to some unknown place and we purchase a ticket, paying $2,000 for a ticket. Where is the guarantee that you will go there? You're paying money first, but there is no guarantee that you will go there. How do you get the ticket, and how do you get on the plane without faith? So if you go to the to the airlines and you tell them that first let me fly the plane and then I'll pay for your ticket, they're going to tell you, Prabhupada says, let me just quote what Prabhupada says verbatim. So many people are going, I will also go. That's all faith. You never went there, neither you know whether it's possible to go there. You have to purchase ticket. If you say, first of all, let me go there, then I shall pay, they will say, get out. First of all, pay, then you come on. So even when we make a simple travel arrangement, Prabhupada is trying to show us that there is some basic amount, basic faith we have in the airlines, that we purchase a ticket in advance, and we have some faith in the pilot that he's going to take us to our destination, and the plane is going to, in all possible circumstances, the plane is going to land properly, and we are going to reach our destination. So this is the initial faith which we see is, it's not in so much in knowledge, if in one sense it's a kind of a blind faith, in one sense. You just take it, you just take it as it comes. So, but then the other faith, which is, this is in the initial verses like 45 through 60, this kind of faith is being discussed, and by the time we reach verse 62, we are seeing that a fixed faith is being discussed. So nishtha, which is the fixed faith, means this conviction, this cannot be changed. So in this phase where the conviction is fixed, the faith is fixed, Prabhupada writes that a devotee with such faith feels that he can attain Krishna consciousness, all his desires will be fulfilled. There is nothing more important than the development of Krishna consciousness. A devotee with nishtha may not have attained the goal, but is fixed on its importance and value. So we see here that where Prabhupada is trying to say that when a devotee has got this fixed faith in Krishna, he understands that he doesn't have to perform any external duties or try to please anybody in the world. He knows and understands that pleasing Krishna will automatically please, and automatically it contains all the other external duties that a person needs to perform. So they're automatically done. It is not like he has to make a separate endeavor to actually go about his normal routine duties or anything like that. He knows that everything is accomplished naturally by Krishna consciousness. So how does this faith actually come into, how do we acquire this faith? So this is discussed in Bhagavad Gita 17.2, where the Krishna says, according to the modes of nature acquired by the embodied soul, one's faith can be of three kinds: in goodness, in passion, or in ignorance. So we see that in the Bhagavad Gita, in this chapter 17, we see that Krishna is explaining that every person is born in, with some qualities according as what his desires were in his previous birth. So according to that, he gets some kind of a body, and he's put into those modes. His body acts according to those modes he is in because of the desires. So because of that, the modes, his faith can be in goodness, or in passion, or in ignorance. So when one person who is affected by these modes, naturally all of us are affected by the modes in the material world, unless we are performing spiritual activities all the time. At some point of time, everybody gets affected by the material modes. Our health may not agree, something may not, the doshas may not be in place. So it happens, it's common. And so who is actually driving this faith? So Krishna, again, he explains in Bhagavad Gita chapter 7 verse 21. I'm skipping the Sanskrit for now anyways. I'm just reading the translation. I am in everyone's heart as the super soul. As soon as one desires to worship some demigod, I make his faith steady so that he can devote himself to that particular duty. So in this verse, we see that how Krishna, he actually furthers a person's faith by, as a super soul sitting in the heart of a person. So this is again confirmed in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, chapter 22, 49th verse, which we are now discussing this chapter. In this, where it says, Krishna is situated in everyone's heart as the Chaitya Guru. the spiritual master within. When he is kind to some fortunate conditioned soul, he personally gives him lessons so he can progress in devotional service, instructing the super soul within and the spiritual master without. So he actually directs, Krishna actually directs the individual according as his faith into more devotional service, into the association of devotees. So he, as the super soul, the Chaitya Guru, he is instructing the person, and also externally as the Acharya or the spiritual master, he is instructing a person. He shows the way to a person. But then this is according to what a person's desire is. Ye yatha mam prapadyante tam tatheva bhajamyaham. So according to what a person's faith is, in whatever modes he is situated in, Krishna as a super soul, he directs him and he awakens this faith. If a person is naturally inclined towards devotional service, Krishna will actually reciprocate, and he will yatha, that's what it means, like he will reciprocate according to the faith and the desire of that person. So now when there is this initial faith, so we see that according to the desire of a person, Krishna will provide as a super soul, he will guide the person, and also externally as the Acharya, he gives him the association. So the first point of contact or the first association we see is that of a guru. So the spiritual master is the first kind of association. When the word association comes, the first the context is in the context of a spiritual master. So we see that in the verses following verse 49, the value of devotee association is discussed. So Srila Prabhupada, he constructed and so many temples all around the world, and gave us this opportunity that we can actually associate with so many devotees, not just our spiritual master, but all devotees in one sense are our Shiksha Guru. We may learn a small thing from some person, but nevertheless, when we enter the temple, as soon as we set foot into the temple, we are constantly learning, something by visual process, sometimes by talking to a person, sometimes by honoring prasadam, sometimes by taking darshan of deities. So one way or the other, we are always, when we are in the temple, we are getting some association of some kind. So this is why Srila Prabhupada, he established so many temples, and he said that these temples are the preaching centers where a person can come and actually enhance his spiritual sadhana or his devotional life. So this association of devotees, that is being, so many beautiful verses were discussed in this context as to how the association of devotees is so important, because only in some cases I've also heard this, that only when you accept a spiritual master, your devotional life actually starts. So sometimes we may tend to wonder, so I have accepted a spiritual master and but not gotten formally initiated. I heard from one Prabhupada disciple that you may not be formally initiated, and for sometimes a person new to the movement may not even have figured out who a spiritual master is. He may not have gotten that clarity as yet, but still, as long as he is accepted Prabhupada's literature, as long as he is convinced that Prabhupada is giving him the actual science, he is automatically a devotee. Because in one sense, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has freely given the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra to all the fallen souls in the Kali Yuga. So without any qualification, all he says is, have a little faith and chant. That's all he's asking for. He's not asking for any qualification as bathe early in the morning and you have to sit and chant in a secluded place on a kusha grass. No such restrictions are there. He is just freely given the Maha Mantra to any person. So there is, why I'm saying is, there is no hope to be lost here. Even if we follow Srila Prabhupada's book and we are just starting our spiritual life, even that is a very good devotional service. That is also part of devotional service. Though doing your devotional service under the auspices of your guru, of a spiritual master, will be more directed, will be more guided, and the guru can guide you and see to it that you don't fall off the track. So it will be more structured in one sense, but nevertheless, to start off, we can always embrace Srila Prabhupada's instructions, his books, his teachings, his lectures, and make a basic start. And that is also devotional service. In your heart, if you accept Srila Prabhupada's teachings and start off, with some faith, that is also as good as devotional service. So we should not despair in thinking that I'm not initiated and, so I'm not doing any kind of devotion. As long as you've accepted Srila Prabhupada as the Acharya. So we find these days, during initiation ceremonies too, many times all gurus, they say, they ask you what are the rules and regulations you have to follow. So the 4 regs are listed. The disciple quotes the 4 regulations, and then he also vows to chant a minimum of 16 rounds. And many gurus, they say, will you stick by the principles of Srila Prabhupada and by ISKCON? This is something so commonly I'm hearing. So because this the whole philosophy or our whole movement, it centers around Srila Prabhupada. So we want to make sure that everybody is on the same track following the principles of Srila Prabhupada. So this is an oft-quoted thing I'm seeing in many initiations these days. That so what I'm trying to say is, even when you accept Srila Prabhupada in your heart and you're following, you're still doing some kind of devotional service. But then the next step would be to approach a spiritual master and take direct guidance, so that you can make more speedy progress. When somebody is able to guide you in person, it does make a lot of difference to your spiritual life. So in this sense, the value of devotee association is discussed in so many verses here. So by associating with devotees in service, one purifies his existence and reaches the platform of pure devotion service. So what actually happens in this devotee association? Why do we talk so much of devotee association? So I picked a few verses from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 30. This is regarding the Prachetas. So they are speaking, whenever pure topics of the transcendental world are discussed, the members of the audience forget all kinds of material hankerings, at least for the time being. Not only that, but they are no longer envious of one another, nor do they suffer from anxiety or fear. So this is one effect of devotee association. So in devotee association, satam prasangan mama virya samvito. So in devotee association, what generally happens is we discuss the glories of the Supreme Lord. Pure topics of transcendental nature are being discussed. So when this happens, because this is of a transcendental nature and nothing material, the audience or the persons who are listening, they forget all kinds of material hankerings, at least for that time. They are in a different zone or in a different world. And so because they are in one sense transcendentally situated, because they are doing Shravanam, they are actually engaged in devotional service in the form of Shravanam, they don't have this envy, at least for that moment, because in Kali Yuga, many of us are always plagued by all these vices, due to whatever reason, due to the fierce competition, or to the lifestyle, or whatever be the reason, but we are always being bombarded by these vices in Kali Yuga. So but by hearing these topics of transcendental nature in the association of devotees, because association of devotees practically means that you're discussing Krishna and topics of transcendental nature. So what happens is we are no longer envious, and we also are not in any anxiety or fear. So this is one reason why you should associate with devotees, and how you can actually further your devotional quota. The next verse speaks that the Supreme Lord Narayana is present among devotees who are engaged in hearing and chanting the holy name of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Lord Narayana is the ultimate goal of sannyasis, those in the renounced order of life, and Narayana is worshipped through this Sankirtana movement by those who are liberated from material contamination. Indeed, they recite the holy name again and again. So the Lord, Narayana, what this verse means is the Lord Narayana, he actually gives himself to the devotees. He gives himself to the sadhus, to the sannyasis, who are constantly engaged in hearing and chanting. So he is present. There is also another verse which says, Tirthi Kurvanti Tirthani. The sadhu or the sannyasi, he carries the holy places along with him wherever he goes. He purifies the holy place. He purifies any place he goes. So the Supreme Lord Narayana, he is actually present among these devotees who have dedicated their lives. So it is so important for us to associate with any sannyasis when they come to temple, try to serve them in one way or the other, because they have dedicated their life to the movement and their sole purpose and aim. And in one sense, they are only doing devotional service 24/7. They are not into any kind of material activity. Recently we had in Houston Loknath Swami Maharaj, His Holiness Loknath Swami Maharaj was visiting. It was so blissful because he told that he tore away from the last leg of his Vrindavan Yatra. He has been doing Vrindavan Parikrama for 32 years, that's what he said. And he had to, it's like a costless mercy we got, that from Belvan, he had to tear away and he had to take a flight to Houston, and we were fortunate that we got his association. So he said, I had to stop at Belvan. So when he gave a class at a home program, he was still in that mode. He was still discussing. He was like, I'm still in Belvan, he was not able to, though physically he was present here, his mind was totally absorbed in Vrindavan. So you can imagine the kind of nectar we were actually relishing, So he was sharing a lot of pastimes of Vrindavan, and he verbally completed the parikrama path with us, where he stopped it actually physically there. So he said, he kind of completed it with us. He mentioned what are the other places next that come on the parikrama. And so we see that, even when a sadhu visits, they carry the holy place with them. So they are so absorbed in this pastimes of the Lord, and everything, each activity they do is only to please or satisfy the Lord. He actually has authored Bombay is My Office, another book which they were promoting. So somebody in the temple asked, so Maharaj, can you give the suggested donation, or what's the price of the book? Then Maharaj mentioned that he said that my job is to write the books and give the philosophy to others. I'm not a money person. So you can imagine he didn't want to even take that question. So they are so renounced that they are only ready to give the love of Krishna, to give devotion to others. So that is that is why devotee association is being emphasized in these verses prior. And we see in practical, when we meet such sannyasis, we are so blessed and fortunate in ISKCON that we have so many sadhus and sannyasis who are dedicated their life to the mission of Srila Prabhupada. And so we also benefit so much. It's not just our guru, but we also have this advantage of hearing from and associating with so many other sadhus who are also on the same mission or on the same path. So we see that the Supreme Lord Narayana, he is present among these devotees of the Lord who are always in his thoughts, who are always in his devotional service. So they actually carry the dham with them. They actually carry Krishna with them. So because the devotee carries the Supreme Personality of Godhead within his heart, wherever he goes becomes a place of pilgrimage. a holy place for understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is therefore the duty of everyone to associate with pure devotees and thus attain freedom from material contamination. So this is the only way we can get free from material contamination. Is how do we get to that that stage of firm conviction is by devotional service in the association of pure devotees, because these pure devotees are the ones who can actually take us make us transcend over this material realm and take us to the spiritual realm, and thus we attain freedom from material contamination. So everyone should take advantage of the wandering devotees whose only business is to deliver conditional souls from the clutches of Maya. So when we enter into this process of devotional service, it's natural, we do go in with some faith, and then we are also following the process, trying to get instructions from where our Siksha gurus and also our spiritual master and so forth. But there are times when we get doubts in the process, or we do have doubts come up in the process. So it is not abnormal, or it is not that person in fact, like they say, doubt is a sign of intelligence. And also Prabhupada has mentioned that one should not blindly take to this science which he has preached. One should question in a mood of humility and submission, and ask these questions and learn the actual science. So not in, we should not accept anything blindly. That's what Srila Prabhupada oftentimes said. So we do come across, and we do have, sometimes we have doubts in what we are going through. Some examples of these doubts, as quoted by Satsvarup Goswami, are: some people left the Hare Krishna movement when Prabhupada said that we did not go to the moon. Others may not have left, but remained unable to accept his statements. So this faith, sometimes we may not have faith in everything, whatever is being said. So this faith is something that must be worked out against integrity. Sometimes revealing our doubts to someone can help us find that balance. So how do you dispel these doubts? How do you, increase faith? So how we dispel these doubts with the weapon of knowledge, as it is quoted in 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. We asanga shastrena, by giving a bad association, and also by knowledge, we actually dispel this doubt which we have. And how do we increase faith? Satsvarup Das Goswami Maharaj, he says that there are two factors: sincerity and enthusiasm. So once Satsvarup Das Goswami Maharaj, he wrote to Prabhupada that he felt that he's not getting much. He was reading the Bhagavad Gita then, and he was not getting much out of the Bhagavad Gita. So he wrote to Prabhupada saying that he feels that there must be some divine intervention, for him to actually understand the Gita in its true essence. So Srila Prabhupada wrote back to him, and he told that you are sincerely studying the Bhagavad Gita, so Krishna will guide you. So this was the reply Prabhupada gave him. So sincerity, is one way by which you can increase your faith. The other point he says is enthusiasm. So enthusiasm, what he's trying to say is that what we mean by enthusiasm is we should not be enthusiastic about the goal of our devotional service, but we should be enthusiastic about the process of devotional service. Like we should be enthusiastic about serving the Lord, serving the devotees of the Lord, serving in any capacity, but not, okay, if I serve, I will get this recognition, or if I serve, I'll get one plate of prasadam. So that should not be our motivation. The enthusiasm, actual enthusiasm, should be towards the service attitude and not towards the goal of the service or the end result of the service. So that is what is the kind of enthusiasm we are looking for. And if we lack that enthusiasm, what is the way? How can we actually get enthusiastic? again, we have so many means and avenues. The best way to get back our enthusiasm is to, go again into the association of these enthusiastic devotees. So there are so many kirtan melas, there are so many seminar camps, so many are being organized these days, and the best way is to go and go into such a kind of an immersion program, where 3 days you immerse yourself in the association of devotees. It does have effect on your enthusiasm. You can come back more enthused about what you're doing, more in knowledge. So one other way to increase your enthusiasm is to gain more knowledge by attending these seminars, and also by performing devotional service in the form of chanting, by going to these kirtan melas, if you are inclined to those kind of, whatever kind of seva you're inclined to. There are so many things happening, and we can take advantage to actually further our enthusiasm. So then after this, we see how the devotee association is in so many different ways. It is actually fixing up our faith, or it is firming up our faith, and then in the last few verses before the 62nd verse, we see that the most confidential knowledge is being discussed. Manmana bhava matpato madhyaji mam namaskuru. So this is taken from the 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. So as the person becomes fixed, and he gets rid of all these material tendencies by the performance of devotional service in the association of devotees, what happens is his faith is fixed, and then now he can come to that actual platform. So here Krishna reveals the most confidential knowledge to him. So just so we understand that now we have come to this platform of firm faith, where the most confidential knowledge is being has been revealed. So so what is this? So if this is most confidential knowledge, there must be some confidential and more confidential knowledge, right? Which has already been discussed, and which we have been through as a process, and that's why we are at the stage of most confidential knowledge. So in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 18, 63 purport, we come to the definitions of confidential, more confidential knowledge is being discussed. I just thought I will bring this to the fore. The Lord has already explained to Arjuna the knowledge of Brahma Bhuta. One who is in the Brahma Bhuta condition is joyful. He never laments, nor does he desire anything. That is due to confidential knowledge. So that is the confidential knowledge definition. You see, when one is on the Brahma Bhuta Prasannatama na shochati na kankshati, that verse, it talks of confidential knowledge. That is what is being explained in the purport by Srila Prabhupada. Krishna, next stage, Krishna also discloses knowledge of the super soul. This is also Brahman knowledge of Brahman, but it is superior than the Brahma Bhuta stage. So Brahma Bhuta stage, in one sense, is a stage of self-realization. When a person realizes that he is the spirit soul and not this body, and he is not wavered by any kind of material attractions, or material adversities or happiness, or he does not waver by the dualities of material nature, and he comes to this platform of Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma. So he is always in a state of bliss. So that is actually the knowledge of Brahman. That is the Brahman realization. There are 3 stages of realization: Brahmeti, Paramatmeti, Bhagavaniti, Shabdati. So the first stage, Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma, that is the Brahman state of realization, which is called confidential knowledge. The next stage is the knowledge of the super soul. This is also a Brahman knowledge, but it is superior. That's what Prabhupada is saying. Here the words Yatechasi Tatha Kuru, as you like you may act. That's what Krishna says in this verse 1863. Indicate that God does not interfere with the little independence of the living entity. In Bhagavad Gita, the Lord has explained in all respects how one can elevate his living condition. The best advice imparted to Arjuna is to surrender unto the super soul seated within his heart. By right discrimination, one should agree to act according to the order of the Supersoul. That will help one become situated constantly in Krishna consciousness, the highest perfectional stage of human life. So Arjuna is being directly ordered by the personality of Godhead to fight. Surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead is in the best interest of the living entities. It's not for the interest of the Supreme. Before surrendering, one is free to deliberate on this subject as far as the intelligence goes. So that is the best way to accept the instruction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Such instruction comes to the spiritual master, the bona fide representative of Krishna. So this is the second stage, which is the more confidential knowledge, where Sri Krishna is actually giving the knowledge of the super soul to Arjuna and saying that we need to surrender to the super soul. But then a devotee, he gets the most confidential knowledge, manmana bhava madbhakto sarva dharman parityajya mamekam sharanam raja, which they are the consecutive verses. So that is the most confidential knowledge which was discussed before verse 62, in which he says, always think of me, become my devotee, worship me, and offer your homage unto me. Thus you will come to me without fail. I promise you this because you are my very dear friend. So the Lord here, he has described so many various kinds of knowledge and processes of religion, knowledge of the Supreme Brahman, knowledge of the Super Soul, knowledge of different types of orders and statuses of social life, the renounced order, and so many things. But then in the end, he says, give up all this and just surrender unto me. That surrender will save a person from all kinds of sinful reactions. So this is the platform on which a person fixed in faith operates. He has his full faith in Krishna, and he is totally surrendered to Krishna. That's what it means when a person has full faith. He is actually totally surrendered to Krishna. So this process of surrender to Krishna is described in the Hari Bhakti Vilasa as, it's a very famous verse, anukulyasya sankalpa pratikulyasya varjanam rakshishyati te vishvaso goptrutve varnam tatha atmanikshepa karpanye shadvidha sharanagatihi. According to the devotional process, one should simply accept such religious principles that will lead ultimately to the devotional service of the Lord. Anukulyasya sankalpa. One may perform a particular occupational duty according to his position, but if he does not come to the point of Krishna consciousness, all his activities are in vain. This is actually a translation of the Bhagavatam verse, which says Shrama eva hi kevalam. So dharmasvanu Chitapumsam Vishwakshena Kathasuya Notpadayed Yadhiratim Shrama Eva Hi Kevalam. So this is what Prabhupada has translated in this purport. Anything that does not lead to the perfection stage of Krishna consciousness should be avoided. So this is the second part of the sixth process of surrender. Pratikulyasya Varjana. One should be confident that in all circumstances Krishna will protect him from all difficulties. That is the third line, Rakshishyati iti vishvaso. So examples of this kind of surrender, who were confident that in all circumstances Krishna will protect them. The best example which comes to our mind is Prahlad Maharaj. He went through so many, trials. His father put him through so many difficult situations, but he had, even as a child of 5, he had unflinching faith in the Supreme Lord. He knew that Krishna would come to his protection. So that kind of a faith or surrender is required. That is one symptom of surrender which is being discussed. Okay, one should always one should be confident that in all circumstances Krishna will protect him from all difficulties. There is no need of thinking how one should keep the body and soul together. One should always think himself helpless and should consider Krishna the only basis for his progress in life. So we should feel helplessness and seek the help of Krishna, seek the protection of Krishna. That is also one form of surrender, and which will also increase our faith. So there are different processes of religion purifications, processes by cultivation of knowledge, meditation, and yoga system. But one who surrenders to Krishna does not have to execute so many methods. So as we are seeing in the verse 62, I'm sorry, I didn't go into the purport of that yet, which actually says that all the activities are automatically performed, when you are performing devotional service. So here the same thing Srila Prabhupada is reiterating in this verse too, that you don't have to do anything extra. The devotional service encompasses everything. That simple surrender unto Krishna will save him from unnecessarily wasting time. One can thus make progress at once and be freed from all sinful reactions. So this is the express elevator path, as they call it, that Srila Prabhupada has given. That by just serving Krishna, we are actually doing all the necessary services we are required to do. I'll just skip, in respect of time, I just will skip some of the notes I had taken. Okay, yeah, let's just move on because it's 10:53. So with this kind of an understanding, we will approach today's verses. So the purport to verse 62 reads, firm faith and confidence are called Shraddha. When one engages in the Lord's devotional service, he is understood to have performed all his responsibilities in the material world. He has satisfied his forefathers, ordinary living entities, and demigods, and is free from all responsibility. Such a person does not need to meet his responsibilities separately. It is automatically done. Fruitive activity, karma, is meant to satisfy the senses of the conditioned soul. However, when one awakens to Krishna consciousness, he does not have to work separately for pious activity. The best achievement of all fruitive activity is detachment from material life, and this detachment is spontaneously enjoyed by the devotee firmly engaged in the Lord's service. So we see here that by engaging in devotional service under the guidance of a guru, we automatically are doing devotional service. We don't have to do any separate endeavor, to fulfill our material needs. So when we join ISKCON and we take the guidance of a spiritual master, at least we are never given this advice that quit your job or neglect your family or give up your children and your wife and just do this. We are never in some cases, when somebody is a brahmachari, they are shown the path of celibacy and given an option that they could follow the path. But in most cases, for grihasthas, all we are asked to do is worship Krishna and make Krishna the center of our grihastha life. We should not, the whole grihastha ashram must revolve around serving Krishna, the husband and wife and the children. They all work together in pleasing Krishna. So that is the aim, and that is what we are actually preached to. And we are never told that quit your job or quit caring for your children, or which in one sense, if you are able to quit your job and give more time to Krishna, it's always good. But never are we advised that neglect your family or children and take up to the Lord. We are never advised like this at grihasthas. In fact, in many instances, sannyasis say that grihasthas, battling their grihastha ashram and also offering devotional service to the Lord, it is one of the biggest challenges. They face more challenges in some sense than even brahmacharis. That's what they say, it's not easy to stay in the grihastha ashrama and do devotional service. But then so many devotees are doing it so nicely under the guidance of the spiritual master. So this, what I'm trying to get here is that when we say that he doesn't have to perform any duties, when it is being said in this verse that he doesn't have to do anything other than devotional service, what we're actually saying is a devotee dovetails all his activities around Krishna. dovetails all his activities in Krishna consciousness. And so naturally, even when he's, externally he may be going to work and, making money for the family or whatever, but in his mind he is always in the thoughts of Krishna, and he knows that he is just doing it as a matter of duty to provide for the family. So this thought always is there. So the attitude with which a person externally, uh, you know they may be doing the same thing, going to work, or taking the children to their school, or putting them somewhere like that, but internally the consciousness is different. They are more detached in one sense. They are just doing it as a matter of duty, and that they're supposed to do as a parent or as a provider for the family. So this is what is meant when Krishna says that you don't have to do any separate endeavor to meet your responsibilities, because these are all actually your prescribed duties which you're supposed to do. So prescribed duties are done according to Vedic injunction. So when you do something according to Vedic injunction, it automatically is in line with the devotional service. So moving on to verse 2263. This is from Bhagavatam. So in this verse it is described that how by just performing devotional service, all the activities are covered. You don't have to do any separate endeavor. So in this just one second, let me pull up this verse. Um 4:31:14. I'm sorry about this. I thought I had it up, but I may have closed the window. Yeah, I'm sorry about the time. Yata taro mula nishechanena tripyanti tatskanda bhujopashaka pranopahara chetendriyanam tatheva sarvahanam achyutejya. As pouring water on the root of the tree energizes the trunk, branches, twigs, and everything else, and as supplying food to the stomach enlivens the senses and limbs of the body, simply worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead through devotional service automatically satisfies the demigods who are parts of the Supreme Personality. So it's a very nice, beautiful purport. I'll just skim through it. I would love to have read it in a whole, but I'm sure devotees can take time and read it, because it's already 11. Sometimes people ask why this Krishna consciousness movement simply advocates worship of Krishna to the exclusion of the demigods. The answer is given in this verse. The example of pouring water on the root of a tree is very appropriate. In Bhagavad Gita, it is said, Urdhva Moolam Adha Shakham. This cosmic manifestation has expanded downward, and the root is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So when you water the root, automatically the trunks, the branches, twigs, and everything else get their food supply. So the other analogy of the stomach is given. When you feed food into the stomach through the mouth, all the limbs, the senses and the limbs of the body are satisfied. So these are the two analogies which Prabhupada gives in the purport. Some interesting facts I would like to point out. Sometimes it is argued that karma and jnana require a mix of bhakti in order to be successfully executed. And sometimes it is argued that bhakti also requires karma and jnana for a successful termination. So the fact Prabhupada says here is that, however, that although karma and jnana cannot be successful without bhakti, bhakti does not require the help of karma and jnana. Like we saw, Prabhupada, when Satsvarup Maharaj, he asked Prabhupada, is knowledge required for the faith, or for our devotional service? So Prabhupada said that knowledge is not required, but once you have the faith in the association of devotees, and by performing devotional service, you will automatically get the knowledge. So Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janayatya Shubhairagyam Jnanam Chayata Hetukam. So you get vairagyam and jnanam as byproducts of bhakti. So this is quoted in the Srimad Bhagavatam. That's what Prabhupada is also trying to say. So automatically these things will manifest when we perform devotional service. So this was one point I wanted to bring. Like I said, it's a wonderful purport for that Bhagavatam verse 4:31-14. Please do take the time to read over, and I would like to end this discussion with this verse from the Bhagavad Gita. Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadhami buddhi yogam tam yena mam pyantite. Those who are constantly devoted and worship me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. The conclusion is that one must come to the platform of Bhakti Yoga, even though one may begin with Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga or Ashtanga Yoga. Unless one comes to the platform of Bhakti Yoga, self-realization or realization of the absolute truth cannot be achieved. So this is what we are seeing in this previous verses, how the most confidential knowledge is being is being discussed in the preceding verses, and how a person, by gaining this most confidential knowledge, what it actually means is total surrender to Krishna and working in Krishna consciousness, dovetailing all our activities and performing devotional service for the pleasure of the Lord and devotees. So I would like to end the class here. There were so many other points I had noted down, examples of devotees with firm faith and things like that. I'm sorry, due to want of time, I'm not able to discuss these in detail. So please forgive me. Thank you very much for your kind attention. I'd like to stop here. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Sukha Sagari Mataji. Very, very nice. A lot of clarity, Mataji. This class actually gave a lot of clarity on these set of verses, how it flows through. It was very nice that you came at this time. Of course, thanks to Supriya Mataji for bringing you in again. And thank you for the wonderful class. Actually, I had a few questions. The first question I had is about, you were talking about Shraddha, right? The initial Shraddha, and then you spoke about Nishtha. So when you were talking about the initial Shraddha, you gave this example of, accidentally, Yadrichya just going to the temple, or, just because someone said, we just go to the temple, or we just take something. So that facilitates our initial, that is like, it gives a chance to do bhakti. So when you were talking about that, you were also saying about the three kinds of sukriti. Bhakti Unmukhi Sukriti, then Mukti Unmukhi, and then Bhoga Unmukti, if I'm not wrong. So my question is, when you gave this example of going to temple accidentally, that is Bhakti Unmukhi Sukriti, is it?
Yes. Actually, I confirmed this with one, one proper disciple, one Mataji, who I go to generally. So she told it's a remote form of Bhakti Unmukhi, because, when you go to the temple, it's also one of the devotional services, right? When you go to the temple, or when you even do any kind of pious activity, even when you do like a sacrifice, in accordance to Vedic injunctions, anything you do in according to Vedic injunction is a remote form of, like the initial stage of Bhakti Unmukhi. That's what she told me.
So examples of going to temple, etc., are Bhakti Unmukhi.
Then they are in very initial stages. That's what she told. Because it's all in accordance with scriptures.
How about Bhoga Unmukhi? What would relate to Bhoga Unmukhi Sukriti?
Bhoga is, when you do some sacrifice for, like sense gratification or something like that. Very mundane.
And Mukti? And Mukti Unmukhi?
Yeah, Mukti is, like generally people who are after the Brahman realization, who don't want to serve, basically they want to get rid of the material pangs. They want to get rid of this body which is the source of pain. They want merging into the Lord, basically, like that. That is also, in one sense, transcendental, like how Krishna says in those verses we discussed. It is also a transcendental state, the Brahmabhuta platform, where one wants to exist, one wants to merge with the Brahman is also a transcendental state. Even one who is, the other stage of super soul realization is also again transcendental. But, these again, they are not in full, they are just aspects, partial aspects.
Right. So, but how is it, what activity corresponds to Mukti Unmukhi then? Like, for example, going to a temple may correspond to Bhakti Unmukhi, that is giving Bhakti. So, like that, and Bhoga Unmukti, you said, if supposing they are doing some sacrifice for, sacrifice to enhance, for their sense gratification or something like that, then that is. Then is there any relevant example, or it's not very clear? It's like a blurred thing.
We have seen in the, the transcendentalists, like the jnanis, they engage in study of scriptures. Sometimes, like, it is discussed. Sorry?
So you mean to say like accidental study of scriptures or coming across some accidental jnanis, that's how they start their journey? That's what.
It's not accidental in every case. That Bhakti Unmukhi, it's see, when we say accidental, it is how we get the initial faith. That is the accidental. These Unmukhis are not accident. I mean, they are just terms which define different kinds of, sukritis, like, different kinds of good fortunes we have. Okay. So that accidental, how we get that first Bhakti Unmukhi is accidental. I don't know if I'm making clear. Like
no. I understand. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, but these are the other specific terms. Like like somebody who is like a jnani or a philosopher, he may engage in the study of scriptures, and he may be like he thinks that, like how in general Prabhupada says the examples of Mayavad, like they feel that the body is a big pain, and they don't believe in the body. They want to do away with the body. So they gain knowledge and they perform all these things. They restrain themselves. They take renounced order, and in which they think they should not do any activity like that. Total everything they want to do, nothingness. Kind of. So so that is for mukti, right? I mean mukti unmukhi.
Get it. So the other thing I wanted to ask Mataji, thanks for this. This was pretty clear, whatever you said. I could understand what you're saying. The other thing I had was about the fall of events, like how you were describing. I know you went through a series of verses, and you said very nicely how actually the events take off, like starting with Shraddha. Then, of course, they get into devotee association, meaning Guru, mercy of Guru. And then, because of the mercy of Guru and following the process of devotional service, you get Nishtha, right? And after, is it correct to understand that after the stage of firm faith, only you actually get into this process of Man Manabha Mat Bhakta, right? That was the previous verse. I think that was 63 or something, or maybe even before that verse from Bhagavad Gita that was quoted, which you were covering.
Man Manabha Mat Bhakta, and next is Sarvadharman, yes. So when you are in that firm faith, firm faith means that, now you have given the reins to Krishna. So you feel that Krishna will take care of everything, and you don't have to do anything separately, that is what is described in the purport by Srila Prabhupada, that firm faith, that Manmana stage is that stage where you totally, surrender to Krishna and say that he will take care of all your activities, all your, everything about your life. So that stage is pretty high up there.
So that means it comes after Nishtha, that stage.
Yeah.
But then in the verses, it's just before. That's how it's laid out in the verses of Chaitanya Charitamrita.
In the verses, sorry?
It is discussed earlier than discussing the point of Nishtha, right? In the verses, I think it's discussed already in 59, 60, and then in 62, we start seeing about Shraddha. I mean, firm faith, Nishtha.
Yeah, from in 62, you see, you're actually coming to that stage, in that Manmana Bhava Mad Bhakto verse. You're coming to that stage of where you have you get the most confidential knowledge, and you know that, okay, serving Krishna is the end all. There is nothing more to devotional life than this. So at that stage, what happens is you are steady. So the next verse follows with firm faith. You understand what I mean?
So they are kind of overlapping.
Yeah. So that is the logical, path. Once you are fixed in that most confidential knowledge, which a devotee, is on a devotee platform, then the firm faith is being discussed and everything is being discussed, because you have to be at that platform, uh, where we know the most confidential knowledge, because a firm faith means you're in total knowledge. And what is that knowledge which gives you firm faith? That knowledge is nothing but the most confidential knowledge. So unless you have most confidential knowledge, you cannot have firm faith. So unless we come to that platform of that most confidential knowledge, our faith is still wavering. So that most confidential knowledge is what is being discussed before that, before that 62nd verse. So once you understand that knowledge, you will have complete faith. So then 62nd verse talks of complete faith.
Very nice, Mataji. Thank you. That was very clear, very nice. Very beautiful class, nice analogies, quoting Srila Prabhupada quotes and Lokanath Maharaj example. Everything is very nice. Thank you, Mataji. And also thanks for discussing, the stages as described in the 18th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, where different realizations are discussed, most confidential, more confidential, and confidential knowledge. Thank you, Mataji. Very, very fulfilling class. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Preeti, for being so attentive and, like Parikshit Maharaj, you're being so attentive. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Please accept my Dhanvat Pranam. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Guru Maharaj ki jai. This is Supya from Houston, Mataji. Thank you so much for considering my word and taking this class, Mataji. It's so nice and so detailed, Mataji. Thank you so much. And in this class, what you told, I like that point, Mataji. Like, we are doing the devotion with some sort of goal. We do some service or we do any kind of work in the temple or in day-to-day life activities, and with some kind of goal, with the output, and with that output in the mind, we are doing that. That I liked very much, and I connected to that in one way is, like, whatever I do service in the temple, I do especially for the sweets of Krishna. Those sweets are very yummy, and I sometimes, when I do some service, I get those sweets, so I keep in mind that and I do service. So I got clarity that I should not keep my mind on the output of goal, but I should do my service sincerely. Thank you so much for clarifying that, Mataji. And another question I have, Mataji, like in material world, there is a question like Manava Seva is equal to Madhava Seva, while helping the destitutes, like poor people, is more in material world, they consider it's more than devotion. Then how can we justify that kind of questions, Mataji?
Yes, Mataji, I was waiting if somebody will ask this, and Danvat Pranams to you too, Mataji. And when you're getting Prasadam as a reward, again, it's honoring Prasadam is also devotional service. So please don't think that it's wrong, to for Prasadam, all rules are, I mean, you can flout all rules for Prasadam. There is absolutely, no two ways about it. And Prasadam is the main, I mean, sometimes I would say Prasadam is the main source of attracting devotees to Krishna, and ISKCON. Like, I mean, it's a known fact that many of us went into, Krishna consciousness via Prasadam. So there you're quite safe there, Mataji. So please do enjoy and please do partake of the remnants of the Lord. I mean, yes, Mataji, for the other question, many Hindu organizations do say that Manava Seva is Madhava Seva. but Prabhupada always said that Madhava Seva is Manava Seva. There is one nice article I can share with you, because I'm not sure if I have the time to read all through the article now. So I'll just like to highlight the points in this regard. Many times many people have asked this question. The first question is, the first point is that as grahasthas, we are supposed to engage in charity and such activities. So when somebody is in need like that, we can always give them some prasadam, and in some form give them Krishna consciousness, because we are devotees. We don't give them some food like that, but we give food because offered to Krishna. This is at a very basic level, trying to satisfy the hunger of a poor person or something like that. So that is at the basic level. We can maybe give prasadam. The other level is sometimes people are in distress. They are in lot of anxiety and confused in this. They may be frustrated with their material lives. So you can give them scriptures. That is even greater than just giving them prasadam and not giving them philosophy. But if you give them philosophy, it will help them help themselves. So that is even greater. The third point which I would like to mention in this regard is that there are several organizations, if we see who are into philanthropic activities. Like Srila Prabhupada says, there are so many organizations, they are into social welfare, providing housing for the poor, providing food, for providing clothing, shelter, and all these things. So our organization is to give them spiritual food. So in this regard, there was once a severe drought in Andhra Pradesh in 1972. So I have this a letter in front of me, where the Secretary of Andhra Pradesh Relief Fund Committee, he wrote to Prabhupada, and he asked for assistance. He said that many people are, there is no drinking water because of the drought situation. There is no food. Food grains are not available, and people are suffering so much. So Prabhupada has actually, he gives them a reply to this in a letter, and he says that our institution, he says he doesn't directly approach the question, but he says that our institution is to give this Krishna conscious knowledge by which you can permanently avoid or permanently get rid of all this suffering. So that is the way to go. So I request you all to please join this organization, all these higher officials. So he says that when famous men or when leading men accept this Krishna consciousness, yadad acharati shrestha tattad evetaro jana. So even the common man will follow. So Prabhupada takes this opportunity, and then he wrote back to the secretary. He said that please take to Krishna consciousness, and it will stop all these problems which you are facing. So that was his reply. So like I said, as grihasthas, we should engage in these kind of charities. So many more charities in the mode of goodness, ignorance, passion. Everything is discussed in the Bhagavad Gita. We are given this knowledge in the Bhagavad Gita. So according to the Gita, to the scriptural injunctions, we should engage in some form of charity, but it should be Krishna consciousness. But again, at the end of all of it, we should always keep in mind that we are not a charity organization. We are a charity organization to give this knowledge to others, because so many other organizations are doing all these other catering to the bodily needs. But we have to, our organization deals with catering to the needs of the soul, because there are very few organizations which do that. Maybe as far as I know, ISKCON is perhaps only one I know who is always giving soul food. So so that way we have to keep our the goal of our organization also in place and act accordingly. But there is no harm in reaching out to like flood victims, like for example in Houston, like that. So a grihastha must engage in those activities too, according to the scriptural injunctions. but then with the always with the fact in mind that we are here to give them something superior, by which they can transcend this material suffering.
Yeah, just not to satisfy that point, but we have to go to the roots and give the proper satisfaction physically and mentally.
Yes,
Yeah,
Mataji.
got it, Mataji.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much. And if anybody has no questions, Mataji, shall I ask a question?
Yeah, I mean, I it's okay with me, Supriya. Please go ahead.
Okay, and regarding this devotion, Mataji, the same similar question we heard in the material world. We hear that work is worship. If we do our work sincerely, they say it is equal to worship. So, how to justify that answer, Mataji?
Yeah, this also is again answered in Bhagavad Gita. Like for example, Arjuna, he does not want to fight. Arjuna is a Kshatriya, right? His occupational duty is to fight and protect everybody, right? Kshatriya. So he Trayate. So he protects people from danger or whatever. But he is actually giving up his prescribed duty. So what does Krishna advise to him? He tells him, go and fight the war. He tells him the whole Gita, and then says, go and fight the war. Like he does not say, okay, now go sit, you're a jnani, now you're done with your duties, now you attend the most confidential knowledge, now let's give it up. No, that's not what he advises. So whatever occupational position, whatever duties we have to discharge, as part of the varnashrama, we have to do it. There is no two ways about it. Like I said, if one has to provide for his family, they have to do, but keep in mind the scriptural injunctions. So in those cases, when we have such doubts or questions in our mind as to what we should do, we should take the help of our spiritual master. They will advise us actually what is good for us in terms of even material occupation, or and our spiritual duties too. They will clarify all these doubts. That's why it is very important to seek the guidance of spiritual master, because they will give tailor-made they'll give tailor-made solutions according to each person's capacity and where they are in their devotional path. So that's why it's very important to seek the Guru.
Super Mataji. I like the answer. A tailor-made answers. Super Mataji. Really wonderful. Yeah, thank you so much, Mataji, for very, very giving clear-cut answers to my questions, Mataji. Thank you so much, and thanks again, Mataji, for considering my word and taking this class. It's really, really beautiful class, Mataji. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Mataji, very beautiful class. Thank you so much for bringing out so many points in the class, Mataji. It was so beautiful class. Thank you so much, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity, Mata. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Anyone else has any comments? Thank you all so much. Kamadaki Mataji, were you okay? Connection was fine? Okay, thank you, Sukha Sagari Mataji. Thank you so much for your very, very sweet class. It was very nice. Thanks for being there with us. We hope to hear more from you again. Thank you, Supriya Mataji, as well. And thanks to all the devotees who participated in the very good discussion, very nice questions. Thank you. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripasinduभ्यः अनंत कोटि वैष्णववृंद की जय की जय और सुख सागरी माता जी की जय
Thank you, Sukha Sagari Mataji. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Pretty Lasiri Mataji. Thank you.
Thank you, Kamadaki Mataji, for being with us. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.